Tonight is the 19th of August. This is the third night. We are talking on the Itivuttaka. We were at chapter 3, the trees. We came to 3.40. Tonight we come to 3.41. Aga Pasada Sutta. Monks, there are these three foremost kinds of faith. What are the three? Whatever beings there are, whether footless or two-footed or four-footed, with form or without form, percipient or non-percipient, or neither percipient nor non-percipient. Of these, the Tathagata is reckoned foremost, the Arahant Sammasambuddha. Those who have faith in the Buddha have faith in the foremost, and for those with faith in the foremost, the result will be foremost. Whatever states there are, whether conditioned or unconditioned, of these detachment is reckoned foremost. That is, the subduing of vanity, the elimination of thirst, the removal of reliance, the termination of the round of rebirths, the destruction of craving, detachment, cessation, nibbana. Those who have faith in the Dhamma of detachment have faith in the foremost, and for those with faith in the foremost, the result will be foremost. Whatever communities or groups there are, monks, of these the Sangha of the Tathagata's disciples is reckoned foremost, that is, the 4 pairs of persons, the 8 individuals. This Sangha of the Lord's disciples is worthy of gifts, worthy of hospitality, worthy of offerings, worthy of reverential salutation, the unsurpassable field of merit for the world. Those who have faith in the Sangha have faith in the foremost, and for those with faith in the foremost, the result will be foremost. These monks are the 3 foremost kinds of faith. This is foremost for those with faith, for those who know the foremost Dhamma, having faith in the Buddha as foremost, worthy of offerings, unsurpassed, having faith in the Dhamma as foremost, the peace of detachment, bliss, having faith in the Sangha as foremost, a field of merit unsurpassed, distributing gifts among the foremost. Foremost is the merit that accrues, foremost their life and beauty, fame, reputation, happiness and strength. The wise one who gives to the foremost, concentrated on the foremost Dhamma, whether he becomes a deva or a human, rejoices in his foremost attainment. These are the 3 precious things in the world, triple gem, Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha. 3.42 Jivika Sutta. Monks, this is a contemptible means of subsistence, this gathering of alms. In the world, monks, it is a form of abuse to say, you alms gatherer, wandering about clutching a bowl. Yet this means of subsistence has been taken up by young men of good family for a reason, for a purpose. They have not been reduced to it by kings, nor by robbers, nor because of debt, nor through fear, nor from loss of an alternative means of livelihood, but with the thought, we are beset by birth, aging and death, by sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief and despair, overcome by suffering, afflicted by suffering. Perhaps an end can be discerned of this whole mass of suffering. So this young man of good family has gone forth into homelessness, but he may be covetous for objects of desire, strongly passionate, malevolent, corrupt in thought, unmindful, uncomprehending, unconcentrated, of wandering mind and uncontrolled faculties. Just as a brand from a funeral pyre, burnt at both ends, and in the middle smeared with excrement, can be used as timber neither in the village nor in the forest. So by such a simile do I speak about this person. He has missed out on the enjoyments of a householder, yet he does not fulfill the purpose of recluseship. He has missed both a layman's pleasure and his recluseship too, the luckless man. Ruining it, he throws it away and perishes like a funerary brand. Far better for him to swallow a fiery hot iron ball than that immoral and uncontrolled he should eat the country's alms. This brand means a smoldering piece of wood. So if a person goes forth and he doesn't practice as a monk should practice, then he's wasting his life and he's losing out on the lay life, and he's also losing out on the monk's life. It's neither good for anything, not good for anything, just like this funeral brand, a smoldering piece of wood, you can't use it for anything. 3.43 Sangatikana Sutta. Monks, even though a monk might hold on to the hem of my robe and follow close behind me step by step, if he is covetous for objects of desire, strongly passionate, malevolent, corrupt in mind, unmindful, uncomprehending, unconcentrated, of wandering mind and uncontrolled faculties, he is far from me and I am far from him. What is the reason? That monk does not see Dhamma. Not seeing Dhamma, he does not see me. Monks, even though a monk might live 100 leagues away, that means 1,000 kilometers away, if he is not covetous for objects of desire, not strongly passionate, not malevolent, uncorrupt in mind, in thought, with mindfulness established, clearly comprehending, concentrated, of unified mind and controlled faculties, he is close to me and I am close to him. What is the reason? That monk sees Dhamma. Seeing Dhamma, he sees me. Though closely following behind, full of longings and resentment, see how far away he is. The desirous one from the desireless, one unquenched from the quenched, a greedy one from the one without greed. But a wise person who by direct knowledge has fully understood the Dhamma becomes desireless and tranquil, like a calm, unruffled lake. See how close he is to him, a desireless one to the desireless, one quenched to the quenched, the greedless one to the one without greed. So seeing the Buddha is seeing the Dhamma, seeing the Dhamma is seeing the Buddha. 3.44 Aggi Sutta. Monks, there are these three fires. What three? The fire of lust, the fire of hate, and the fire of delusion. It should be raga, dosa, and moha. These monks are the three fires. The fire of lust burns mortals, infatuated by sensual pleasures. The fire of hate burns malevolent people who kill other living beings. The fire of delusion burns the bewildered, ignorant of the Noble One's Dhamma. Being unaware of these three fires, humankind delights in personal existence. Unfree from the bonds of Mara, they swell the ranks of hell. Existence in the animal realm, asura, demons, and the sphere of ghosts. But those engaged in practicing the Buddha's teaching day and night, ever perceiving the body's foulness, extinguish the fire of lust. Those best of humans, by loving kindness, extinguish the fire of hate, and they extinguish the fire of delusion by wisdom that leads to penetration. Having extinguished these fires, unwearied night and day, those discerning ones attain Nibbana and overcome all suffering. The noble seers, masters of knowledge, wise ones with perfect understanding, by directly knowing the end of birth, come no more to renewal of being. This is the third paragraph. It talks about hell, animal, ghosts, and asura, demons. This asura, demons, shows that this part was added later. Because there are no asura demons, there are only asura devas and devis, according to the Digha Nikaya. The later books talk about the four realms, four planes, four woeful planes of existence. Earlier books talk only of three. Next sutta is 3.45. Monks, a monk should so investigate that as he investigates, his consciousness is not distracted and diffused externally, and internally is not fixed and by not grasping anything, he should remain undisturbed. If his consciousness is not distracted and diffused externally, and internally is not fixed, and if by not grasping anything he remains undisturbed, then there is no coming into existence of birth, aging, death, and suffering in the future. When a monk has abandoned the 7 ties and cut the cord, his wandering on in births is finished. There is no renewal of being for him. So a monk should, his consciousness should not be distracted outside, and internally is not fixed. Not sure what this means. Not grasping anything. Normally in other suttas they talk about the mind not being, having sloth and torpor, etc. Okay, 3.46. Kamupati Sutta. Monks, there are these 3 ways of obtaining the objects of sensual desire. What 3? There are those objects of sensual desire already existent. There is the way of those who delight in creating them. And there is the way of those who gain control over objects created by others. These are the 3 ways. Those who enjoy what exists, those devas exercising control, those who delight in creating, and others who enjoy sense objects. Being in this state or another, they cannot pass beyond samsara. Understanding this danger in objects of sensual enjoyment, let the wise person abandon all sense pleasures, those both heavenly and human, by severing the flow of craving, the flow so difficult to overcome, of greed for pleasing, enticing forms. They attain to final nibbana and overcome all suffering. The noble seers, masters of knowledge, wise ones with perfect understanding, by directly knowing the end of birth, come no more to renewal of being. These 3 ways of obtaining sensual desire, those objects that already existent. This refers should be human plane and the lower devas. And those who delight in creating them are those in the 5th heaven of the sensual desire realm, the Nimanarati heaven. And then those who gain control over objects created by others, this is the 6th heaven, the highest heaven in the sensual desire realm, where they make use of other devas to create for them. That heaven is called Paranimitta Vasavati. 3.47 Kama Yoga Sutta. Monks, one bound by the bond of sensual desire and by the bond of being is a returner, one who comes back to this state. One freed from the bond of sensual desire but still bound by the bond of being is a non-returner, one who does not come back to this state. One freed from the bond of sensual desire and freed from the bond of being is an arahant, one in whom the taints are destroyed. Fettered by both these bonds, the sensual bond and the bond of being, living beings continue in samsara, journeying on to birth and death. Those who abandon sensual desires but have not reached the taint's destruction, fettered by the bondage of being, are declared to be non-returners. But those who have cut off doubts, destroyed conceit and renewal of being, who reach the asava's full destruction, though in the world have gone beyond. One bound by the bond of sensual desire are ordinary beings, and one bound by the bond of being is an anagamin, it's a returner. By the bond of being is a non-returner. One bound, but or the first one is bound by the bond of sensual desire and of being, is a returner, that means an ordinary person. And then the second one is freed from the bond of sensual desire but still bound by the bond of being, is a non-returner, is an anagamin. And anagamin has attained the 4th jhana, so he is freed from the bond of sensual desire, but he still has a being, a self. And then the last one is the arahant. 3.48 Kalyana Sila Sutta. Monks, a monk who is of a lovely behavior, lovely nature, and lovely wisdom is called in this Dhamma Vinaya one who is fully accomplished, who has reached fulfillment, the supreme among humans. And how is a monk of lovely behavior? Here a monk is virtuous. He lives restrained by the restraint of the rules of discipline, endowed with perfect conduct and resort, seeing danger in the slightest faults. He undertakes the rules of training and trains in them. In this way, a monk is one who is of lovely behavior. Thus, he is of lovely behavior. This one, he has good sila. And how is he of a lovely nature? Here a monk lives engaged in cultivating the 7 groups of the requisites of enlightenment. In this way, a monk is one who is of a lovely nature. Thus, he is of a lovely behavior and lovely nature. This monk is of a lovely nature, is one who cultivates the 7 groups in the Bodhipathia Dhamma. What are these 7? The 4 Satipatthana, the 4 Iddhipada, the 4 right efforts, and then the 5 faculties, the 5 bala, the 5 powers, and then the 7 bodhi, bojangas, and the 8, and the Noble Eightfold Path. These are the 7 groups. And how is he of lovely wisdom? Here, through realization by his own direct knowledge, a monk here and now enters and abides in the liberation by mind and liberation by wisdom, that is taintless by the destruction of the asavas. In this way, a monk is one who is of lovely wisdom. This one is an arahant, so he has great wisdom. Thus he is of lovely behavior, lovely nature, and lovely wisdom. In this Dhamma Vinaya, he is called one who is fully accomplished, who has reached fulfillment and is supreme among humans. A conscientious monk who never does wrong in any way, neither by body, speech, or mind, is called one of lovely behavior. An unassuming monk who has cultivated well the states that lead to enlightenment is called one of lovely nature. A taintless monk who understands for himself the end of suffering here is called one of lovely wisdom. He who excels in these 3 things, untroubled, without destroyed, unattached in all the world, is called one who has abandoned all. 3.49 Dana Sutta. Monks, there are these 2 kinds of giving, the giving of material things and the giving of Dhamma. Of these 2 kinds of giving, this is the foremost, namely the giving of the Dhamma. There are these 2 kinds of sharing, the sharing of material things and the sharing of Dhamma. Of these 2 kinds of sharing, this is the foremost, namely the sharing of Dhamma. There are these 2 kinds of help, help with material things and help with Dhamma. Of these 2 kinds of help, this is the foremost, namely help with the Dhamma. When they say that giving is supreme and unsurpassed, and the Lord Himself has extolled sharing, who, wise and knowing, confident in the foremost field of merit, would not give at the appropriate time, both for those who proclaim it and for those who listen to it, confident in the Sublime One's teaching, the supreme good is fully purified as they live diligently in the teaching. 3.50 Te Vijja Sutta. Monks, I declare that it is through the Dhamma that one becomes a Brahmana, a holy man, possessing the threefold knowledge. I do not say this of another merely because he can talk persuasively and recite. But how do I declare that it is through the Dhamma that one becomes a Brahmana, possessing the threefold knowledge? Here, monks, a monk recollects a variety of former lives, that is, 1 birth, 2 births, 3, 4, 5, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 births, 1,000 births, 100,000 births, many aeons of world contraction, many aeons of world expansion, many aeons of both world contraction and expansion. He recollects in a particular life, being such a one by name, of such a clan, of such an appearance, having this kind of nutriment, experiencing these kinds of pleasure and pain, having this lifespan, and diseasing from there he arose here. Thus with all their details and particulars, he recollects a variety of former lives. This is the first knowledge attained by him. Ignorance is dispelled, knowledge has arisen. darkness is dispelled, light has arisen, as happens in one who lives diligent, ardent and resolute. Then again monks, with the divine eye, purified and surpassing the human, amongst these beings passing away and reappearing, inferior and superior, fair and ugly, fortunate and unfortunate, and he understands how beings pass on according to their deeds thus. Those worthy beings, practicing misconduct by body, speech and mind, insulters of the noble ones, of wrong view and undertaking deeds in consequence of wrong view, when the body perishes, have been reborn after death in a state of misery, a bad born, a state of ruin, hell. But those worthy beings, practicing good conduct by body, speech and mind, not insulters of the noble ones, of right view and undertaking deeds in consequence of right view, when the body perishes, have been reborn after death in a good born, a heavenly world. Thus he sees this with the divine eye, and he understands how beings pass on according to their deeds. This is the second knowledge attained by him. Ignorance is dispelled, knowledge has arisen, darkness is dispelled, light has arisen, as happens in one who lives diligent, ardent and resolute. Then again monks, a monk, through realization by his own direct knowledge, here and now enters and abides in the released by mind and released by wisdom, that is taintless by the destruction of the taints or asavas. This is the third knowledge attained by him. Ignorance is dispelled, knowledge has arisen, darkness is dispelled, light has arisen, as happens in one who lives diligent, ardent and resolute. Thus, monks, do I declare that it is through the Dhamma that one becomes a Brahmana possessing the threefold knowledge. I do not say this of another, merely because he can talk persuasively and recite. He who knows his former lives, who sees heaven and states of woe, who reaches the end of birth, a sage and master of direct knowledge. By these three ways of knowing, one becomes a Brahmana having the threefold knowledge. This is what I call the threefold knowledge, not another's babbling and reciting. This too is the meaning of what was said by the Lord, so I heard. So this is the end of chapter 3. This threefold knowledge is what the Buddha attained on the night of enlightenment. And also many of his disciples also attained the same. Now we come to the last chapter, chapter 4. Catukkanipata 4.1. Monks, I am a Brahmana, ever accessible to entreaties, open-handed, one bearing his last body, an unsurpassed physician and surgeon. You are my own legitimate sons, born from my mouth, born of Dhamma, fashioned by Dhamma, heirs of Dhamma, not heirs of material things. Monks, there are these two kinds of giving, the giving of material things and the giving of the Dhamma. Of these two kinds of giving, this is the foremost, namely the giving of the Dhamma. There are these two kinds of sharing, similarly these two kinds of help, these two kinds of offerings, the offering of material things and the offering of Dhamma. Of these two kinds of offering, this is the foremost, namely the offering of the Dhamma. The Tathagata has made the Dhamma offering unselfish, compassionate towards all beings. Living beings revere such a one, gone beyond being, as chief of devas and humans. 4.2 Sulabha Sutta. These four, monks, are trifling things, easily obtained and blameless. What for? A robe made of cast-off rags is a trifling thing, easily obtained and blameless. Food gathered on arms round is a trifling thing, easily obtained and blameless. The root of a tree as a dwelling place is a trifling thing, easily obtained and blameless. Medicine consisting of putrid urine is a trifling thing, easily obtained and blameless. These monks are the four trifling things, easily obtained and blameless. When a monk is content with these things that are trifling and easily obtained, I see of him that he has the requisites for recluseship. One content with what is blameless, things trifling and easily obtained, does not become vexed in mind when not obtaining a place to live, a robe to wear, and food and drink. He has no resentment in any quarter. These are the things declared to be suitable for a recluse's life, by possession of which a monk may abide content and diligent. This one, the medicine, is actually our own urine. Putrid urine means smelly urine after keeping for several days. But the commentary interprets it as cow's urine. So we find, like for example in Burmese monks, they keep cow's urine and they put the fruits in those medicinal fruits in the cow's urine. One old Sayadaw told me that that they believe all this for all the time. So when he was teaching in a university in India, he was in India for many years, more than 10 years. And then he went to these Ayurveda centers, and he saw them healing people using Ayurveda, herbal ways of treating. And he saw them using urine, so he asked them whether it's cow's urine. They said no. They said it's human urine. And they said for thousands of years they have been using human urine, not cow urine. So it's something wrong by the commentary. So a monk should be not fussy about these 4 requisites. Sometimes certain monks are very fussy about food, about robes and all that. If you are really fussy, you cannot really be a monk who stays in the forest and all that. Last time when we were in Thailand, sometimes we go on alms round in the village areas. The people are so poor, you go several houses to beg for food. What you get is white rice and 1 egg only, 1 hard-boiled egg. Nothing else. Even with that, we are happy because with 1 hard-boiled egg, it will last you 24 hours. But if they give you only vegetables, then by night you'll be hungry. You need a bit of protein. And sometimes, bake the whole morning, you get a small fried fish from the paddy field. You know what we call the ikan sepat, the small fish. So, enough to survive if you are not fussy. 4.3 Asavakaya Sutta. For one knowing and seeing monks, I say there is the destruction of the asavas, not for one not knowing and not seeing. But for one knowing what, seeing what, is there the destruction of the asavas. For one knowing and seeing, this is suffering, there is the destruction of the asavas. For one knowing and seeing, this is the origin of suffering, this is the cessation of suffering, this is the path leading to the cessation of suffering. There is the destruction of the asavas. Thus it is, monks, that for one knowing and seeing, there is the destruction of the asavas. For a learner who is training in conformity with the direct path, the knowledge of destruction arises first, and final knowledge immediately follows. To one freed by that final knowledge, the topmost knowledge of freedom, there arises the knowledge of destruction. Thus the fetters are destroyed. Certainly not by the lazy person, nor by the uncomprehending fool is Nibbana to be attained, the loosening of all worldly ties. This destruction can refer to the destruction of the asavas, or like here, destruction of the fetters also. 4.4 Samana Brahmana Sutta. Monks, whatever recluses and Brahmins do not understand as it actually is. This is suffering. This is the origin of suffering. This is the cessation of suffering. This is the path leading to the cessation of suffering. Those recluses and Brahmins are not considered by me to be true recluses among recluses, to be true Brahmins among Brahmins. These venerable ones live without having realized and achieved here and now, by their own direct knowledge, the aim of being a recluse, the aim of being a Brahmin or Brahmana. But monks, whatever recluses and Brahmins understand as it actually is, this is suffering, this is the origin of suffering, this is a cessation of suffering, this is the path leading to the cessation of suffering. Those recluses and Brahmins are considered by me to be true recluses among recluses, to be true Brahmins among Brahmins. These venerable ones indeed live, having achieved and realized here and now, by their own direct knowledge, the aim of being a recluse, the aim of being a Brahmin. Those who do not understand suffering, or how suffering is produced, or where suffering finally stops, altogether without remainder, and who do not know that path leading to relief from suffering, they are destitute of release by mind, and lack release by wisdom too. Unable to make an end of it, they fare on in birth and decay. But those who understand suffering and how suffering is produced and where suffering finally stops, altogether without remainder, and who also know that path leading to relief from suffering, they possess that release by mind and the release by wisdom too, able to make an end of it. They never come back to birth and decay. So a real monk or a real recluse is one who understands the Four Noble Truths. There are some, they only want to meditate, they don't want to study the Dhamma. So even if they attain psychic powers and all that, they are not considered real recluse or real Brahmana because they don't know the Dhamma. Even with all their psychic power, they cannot get out of the round of rebirths. 4.5 Sila Sampatta Sutta. Monks, as to those monks who excel in virtue, excel in concentration, excel in wisdom, excel in liberation, excel in knowledge and vision of liberation, who are advisors, instructors and demonstrators, who exhort, inspire and encourage, and who are competent teachers of the true Dhamma. Seeing those monks is very helpful, I say. Listening to those monks, approaching them, attending upon them, remembering them, and following their example in going forth into homelessness is very helpful, I say. For what reason? By following such monks, by associating with them and attending upon them, the aggregate of virtue as yet incomplete reaches completion of development. The aggregate of concentration, of wisdom, of liberation, and of knowledge and vision of liberation, as yet incomplete, reaches completion of development. Such monks as these are called teachers, caravan leaders, fault abandoners, dispellers of darkness, light bringers, makers of radiance, luminaries, torch bearers, bringers of illumination, noble ones, possessors of vision. For those who are knowledgeable, this is a state making for joy, living the life of Dhamma under the noble ones perfected in mind. They clarify the true Dhamma, shining forth and illuminating it. Those light bringers, heroic sages, endowed with vision, dispelling faults, having heard their teaching, the wise with perfect understanding, by directly knowing the end of birth, come no more to renewal of being. So if you can meet somebody who excels in virtue, sila, samadhi, concentration and wisdom, then you are very fortunate. Okay, the next sutta is 4.6. Tanhupada Sutta. Monks, there are four things that arouse craving, whereby the craving that has arisen in a monk arises. What are the four? Because of robes, because of alms food, because of a dwelling place, because of gaining this or losing that, the craving that has arisen in a monk arises. These monks are the four things that arouse craving, whereby the craving that has arisen in a monk arises. A person companioned by craving wanders on the long journey in this state of being or another and cannot go beyond samsara. Having understood the danger thus, that craving is the origin of suffering, a monk should wander mindfully, free from craving, without grasping. So a monk is supposed to possess very little things, but then even those very little things, he can still have attachment for them, robes, food, dwelling place, this or that, gaining or losing this or that. 4.7 Sabrahmaka Sutta. Living with Brahma are those families where within the home mother and father are respected by their children. Living with the early Devas are those families where within the home mother and father are respected by their children. Living with the early teachers are those families where within the home mother and father are respected by their children. Living with those worthy of adoration are those families where within the home mother and father are respected by their children. Brahma monks is a term for mother and father. Early Devas and early teachers and those worthy of veneration are terms for mother and father. For what reason? Because mother and father are very helpful to their children. They take care of them and bring them up and teach them about the world. Mother and father are called Brahma, early teachers and worthy of veneration, being compassionate towards their family of children. Thus the wise should venerate them, pay them due honor, provide them with food and drink, give them clothing and a bed, anoint and bathe them, and also wash their feet. When he performs such service for his mother and father, they praise that wise person even here, and hereafter he rejoices in heaven. So, there's a saying, charity begins at home. So, the first people, we should take care our family members, the children towards their parents, parents towards their children. 4.8 Bahukara Sutta. Monks, Brahmins and householders are very helpful to you. They provide you with the requisites of robes, alms, food, lodgings and medicine in time of sickness. And you monks are very helpful to Brahmins and householders as you teach them the Dhamma that is good at the outset, good in the middle and good at the end, with its correct meaning and wording, and you proclaim the holy life in its fulfillment and complete purity. Thus, monks, this holy life is lived with mutual support for the purpose of crossing the flood and for making a complete end of suffering. Householders and homeless alike, each a support for the other, both accomplish the true Dhamma, the unsurpassed security from bondage. From householders, the homeless receive these basic necessities of life, robes to wear and a place to dwell, dispelling the hardships of the seasons. And by relying on one of good conduct, home-loving layfolk dwelling in a house place faith in those worthy ones of noble wisdom and meditative, practicing the Dhamma in this life, the path leading to a good bond. Those wishing for pleasure rejoice in the delights of the Deva world. So lay people and monks, they mutually support each other. Each have to do their duty. 4.9 Kuha Sutta. Monks, whatever monks are deceitful, stubborn, mere talkers, frauds, arrogant and unconcentrated, these monks are no followers of mine. They have turned aside from this Dhamma and will not achieve growth, progress or development within it. But whatever monks are not deceitful, not mere talkers, wise, adaptable and well concentrated, these monks are indeed my followers. They have not turned aside from this Dhamma and will achieve growth, progress and development within it. Deceitful, stubborn, mere talkers, frauds, arrogant, unconcentrated, these make no progress in the Dhamma taught by the fully enlightened one. Undeceitful, not talkative, wise, adaptable, well concentrated, such as these progress in the Dhamma taught by the fully enlightened one. 4.10 Nadi Sota Sutta. Suppose, monks, a man was being borne along by the current of a river that seemed pleasant and agreeable, but upon seeing him, a keen-sighted man standing on the bank would call out to him, "Hey, good man, although you are being borne along by the current of a river that seems pleasant and agreeable, lower down there is a pool with turbulent waves and swirling eddies, with monsters and demons. On reaching that pool you will die or suffer close to death. Then monks, upon hearing the words of that person, that man would struggle against the current with both hands and feet. I have made use of this simile, monks, to illustrate the meaning, and this is the meaning here. The current of the river is a synonym for craving. Seeming pleasant and agreeable is a synonym for the 6 internal sense bases. The pool lower down is a synonym for the 5 lower fetters. Turbulent waves is a synonym for anger and frustration. Swirling eddies is a synonym for the 5 strands of sensual pleasure. Monsters and demons is a synonym for women folk. Against the current is a synonym for renunciation. Struggling with hands and feet is a synonym for instigating energy. The keen-sighted man standing on the bank is a synonym for the Tathagata, the Arahant Sammasambuddha. Desiring future security from bondage, one should abandon sensual desire, however painful this may be. Rightly comprehending with wisdom, possessing a mind that is well released, one may reach freedom step by step. One who is a master of knowledge, who has lived the holy life, is called one gone to the world's end, one who has reached the further shore. So here you see the verses, the second and the third. One should abandon sensual desire or sensual pleasures, however painful this may be. So to cultivate the spiritual path, sometimes for some people it's very painful. But the Buddha says, what is right, what is skillful, what should be done. Even though with tears coming down your eyes, the Buddha said, to grit your teeth and bear it is worthwhile. 4.11 Chara Sutta. Monks, if while walking, a sensual thought or a thought of ill will or an aggressive thought arises in a monk, and if he tolerates it and does not reject it, does not dispel it and get rid of it and bring it to an end, that monk who in such a manner is lacking in ardor and unafraid of wrongdoing is called constantly lazy and indolent. If while standing or sitting or lying down, a sensual thought or a thought of ill will or an aggressive thought arises in a monk, and if he tolerates it and does not reject it, that monk is called constantly lazy and indolent. But if while walking, standing, sitting, lying down, a sensual thought or a thought of ill will or an aggressive thought arises in a monk, and he does not tolerate it, but rejects it, dispels it, gets rid of it, and brings it to an end, that monk who in such a manner is ardent and afraid of wrongdoing is called constantly energetic and resolute. Whether walking or standing, sitting or lying down, whoever thinks such thoughts that are evil and worldly, he is following a wrong path, infatuated with delusive things. Such a monk cannot reach enlightenment which is supreme. Whether walking or standing, sitting or lying down, whoever overcomes these thoughts, delighting in the quelling of thoughts, such a monk is able to reach enlightenment which is supreme. So we must constantly look into our thoughts, what kind of thoughts we have, unwholesome thoughts we should get rid of and develop wholesome thoughts. Sometimes certain thoughts we have, we must also examine what is the motive, why we think like this or why we react like this and all that, to understand ourselves and cut our defilements. 4.12 Sampana Sila Sutta. Monks, you should live perfect in virtue, perfect in the practice of the rules of discipline, and be restrained by the restraint of the rules, perfect in conduct and resort, seeing danger in the slightest faults. You should train in the rules of training you have undertaken. Living perfect in virtue, monks, and training in the rules of training you have undertaken, what is there further that should be done? If, while he is walking, standing, sitting, and lying down, a monk is free from covetousness and ill will, free from sloth and torpor, free from restlessness and worry, and has abandoned doubts. His energy becomes strong and unflagging. His mindfulness is alert and unclouded. His body is calm and undistressed. His mind concentrated and one-pointed. A monk who in such a manner is ardent and afraid of wrongdoing is called constantly energetic and resolute. Control while walking, control while standing, control while sitting, control while reclining, controlled in bending and stretching his limbs, above, across and below. As far as the world extends, a monk observes how things occur, the arising and passing of the aggregates, living thus ardently, of calm and quiet conduct. Ever mindful, he trains in the course of calm tranquility of mind. Such a monk is said to be one who is ever resolute. So the Buddha always encourages his monks to get rid of the 5 hindrances and attain one-pointedness of mind, because the condition for seeing things as they really are, seeing and knowing things as they really are, is samadhi, one-pointedness of mind. In several suttas it says so. 4.13 Loka Sutta. Monks, the world has been fully understood by the Tathagata. The Tathagata is released from the world. The origin of the world has been fully understood by the Tathagata. The origin of the world has been abandoned by the Tathagata. The cessation of the world has been fully understood by the Tathagata. The cessation of the world has been realized by the Tathagata. The path leading to the cessation of the world has been fully understood by the Tathagata. The path leading to the cessation of the world has been developed by the Tathagata. Monks, in the world with its devas, maras and brahmas, with its recluses and brahmins, among humankind with its princes and people, whatever is seen, heard, sensed, cognized, attained, sought and reflected upon by the mind, that is fully understood by the Tathagata. Therefore he is called the Tathagata. Monks, from the night when the Tathagata awakened to unsurpassed full enlightenment, until the night when he passes away into the Nibbana element with no residue left, whatever he speaks, utters and explains, all that is just so and not otherwise. Therefore he is called the Tathagata. As the Tathagata says, so he does. As the Tathagata does, so he says. Therefore he is called the Tathagata. In the world with its devas, maras and brahmas, with its recluses and brahmins, among humankind with its princes and people, the Tathagata is the conqueror, unvanquished, all-seer, wielding power. Therefore he is called the Tathagata. By knowledge of the whole world as it truly is, he is released from all the world. In all the world he is unattached. The all-conquering heroic sage, freed from every bond is he. He has reached that perfect peace, Nibbana, which is free from fear. Rid of taints, he is enlightened. Trouble-free, with doubts destroyed. Reached the final end of deeds, released by clinging's full destruction. The enlightened one, the Lord, a lion is he, unsurpassed. For in the world, together with his devas, he set the Brahma wheel in motion. Thus those devas and human beings, gone for refuge to the Buddha, on meeting him, pay homage to him, the great one free from diffidence. Tamed, of the tamed he is the best. Calmed, of the calmed he is the seer. Freed, of the freed he is the foremost. Crossed, of the crossed he is the chief. Thus do they pay him due homage, the great one free from diffidence. In the world, together with his devas, there is no person equaling you. This too is the meaning of what was said by the Lord, so I heard. That's the end of the Itivuttaka. So the Buddha says, whatever he says is just so and not otherwise. Whatever the Buddha says is true. But sometimes certain books, you see the Buddha, it seems like the Buddha says one thing and in another book the Buddha says another thing. So the two books cannot be correct. So you can know from there that there are certain later books which contradict what the Buddha says. So the Buddha says, whatever any monk says, he must always compare it to the suttas and the Vinaya. You can only accept it if it agrees with the suttas and the Vinaya. Anything to discuss?
If a person wants to go forth and become a monk, in your opinion, what sort of criteria do you look for?
The most important to me is understanding of the Dhamma. Because if you understand the Dhamma, then as you walk the spiritual path, there will be a lot of suffering, there will be some disappointment, there will be some obstacles, and if you strive hard, then there's even more suffering. But if you understand the Dhamma, you know that life is impermanent. Very soon, this body will die, and what you thought was you will vanish forever and ever, as if it never existed. And then you are willing to put the effort and suffer for it. So the first important thing is understanding the Dhamma. Secondly, even understanding the Dhamma, person sometimes a lot of people they think they want to become a monk. More than a year ago, there was a Australian. At that time he was living in America. He wrote to me and he called me on the phone and all that. He told me he wants to become a monk. So I told him, you only think you want to become a monk. What I meant was that you have to be very sure. A lot of people think they want to become a monk. After they come to the monastery, and then they taste the monk's life, and then they find a lot of suffering. I have to get up at 3:30 in the morning. It's not used to. Go to bed at 9 o'clock at night. We're not used to. No TV, no computer, no internet and all that. Then they get cold feet. So they only think they want to become a monk. They're not sure they want to become a monk. And then there are some people who come into monkhood, wear the robe for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. More than 30 years also they disrobe. Why? So the right view is very important. If you understand the Dhamma and then you attain right view, then you go forth. Then all the obstacles you'll be able to stand.
But certain teachers like Ajahn Chah, which has a very austere way of training his disciples, not willing to take it.
Yes, but I consider Thailand to be the Thai forest monasteries to be a very good place for a new monk. This monastery is not a good place for a new monk because this is not a training monastery. I don't have time. There's not enough monks here to do the training. You want to train a monk, there got to be many other monks to teach him. So the strict forest monasteries in Thailand is a very, very good place for a new monk to get a few years of training. After you've gotten a few years of training, you come back here, a place like this where it's more relaxed. But you start off in this monastery where it's very relaxed. Then you find when you go to other monasteries, you cannot stand it. When I first became a monk, I went to America in a very strict Mahayana monastery. You practically had to work the whole day and start at 7 something on an empty stomach. No coffee, no tea, no breakfast, nothing. And heavy work. Carry Buddha statues, plant trees, repair pipes and electricity and all that. So because of the tough training I had, I go to most monasteries I can take it. So you got to have that kind of initial training. Then only you can go anywhere. You can survive. Also, from experience I can say when a person is young in the monkhood, is full of vigor, it's good to go to a strict monastery, and then later as you mellow and you grow old, then you start to be not so, you can become more lax. But if you have a good start, a very strict start, even you become lax a bit, you don't become too lax. But if you start off with a lax attitude, then when you let go, you become even worse. So I mentioned about that Australian guy. I told him go to Thailand. Now he's in Thailand. But he appreciates our place.
Has he lived in a monastery before? He asked you the question that he wants to become monk.
I don't think so.
But sometimes in working life, we come across situations where we find that some of our workmates are involved in investment funds or goods, and then you rise the thought, you might want to report this person, you want to be conscientious about it, but then there can be backlash as well, because the person who report quite obviously lose his job and might even go to jail. So in such a situation, what would you do?
Hard to say, probably I can try to discourage him from doing something wrong. And if he still persists, maybe don't directly report him, but maybe hint to some people so that they maybe watch him more, so that he slowly he gets to know that people know. But somebody has told me before that his direct boss was doing this kind of thing. Then when he tried to report him, it didn't work because the higher bosses were also all on the take. So when the whole system is corrupt, it's very hard to change. Best thing to do, if you can't tolerate it, to run away, go away.
But in page 228, the first sentence, the knowledge of destruction arises first, and final knowledge immediately follows. Does it mean that once it enters the heart, then it becomes fruit?
Where is this?
The first sentence, the knowledge of destruction.
Is it page, what page?
Page 228.
Number what?
Here's page 102, chapter 4, 102. Should be the first sutta of the chapter 4. And in the words, the third sentence, the knowledge of destruction arises first, and final knowledge immediately follows.
Sutta number 4.1.
4.3.
4.3. If this one is correct, then maybe it refers to knowledge of destruction of the asavas are destroyed, and then he knows. Final knowledge is liberation, probably. But then, the commentaries, they have interpretation which has nothing to do with the suttas. They say when a person attains the path or the fruit, that he sees the nibbana element. They see the nibbana element, then only they attain the Aryahood. I don't know whether this refers to that. If it is, then it's not the Buddha's teaching. Or it can be the knowledge of destruction of the fetters. But this kind of thing is not very important because it doesn't help you to become enlightened. What is important is the Noble Eightfold Path and how to practice the Noble Eightfold Path.
But you have mentioned that killing these 5 group of people around the world, like killing Buddha, splitting the Sangha, or killing mother and father. Of these 5 groups of people, 3 of them are involved in holy, other holy people or holy, but mother and father, sometimes you can have a father who is a drunkard and a swindler, or a mother who is a cheat, So, they're not holy, they may not be holy people. And I think it says that this other sutta, that even if we carry your mother and father on our shoulders and take all the excrement and all that for 100 years, we still cannot repay that. But for children who find their parents abusive and takes advantage of them and all that, the point is unbearable. It's very hard for them to relate to what Buddha is saying.
When the Buddha talks about this mother and father, I think it means the 2 persons who act like parents to you, who act like mother and father. Like somebody, like one of devotees asked me, he said his parents never looked after him when he was young, very young. It was his aunties, other aunties who looked after him. His grandmother who looked after him. So he doesn't feel that closeness to his parents. It's understandable because they didn't act like parents. There are some, for example, give birth to the child and give away the child. So they might be biological parents, but they are not really parents. They are not acting like parents. They did not act like parents. In which case, does not include them, I think. On the other hand, I suppose now a couple they adopt a child and bring up this child like their own child with all the love and all these things. And then if that child kills these parents, that is breaking the one of the most serious offenses, because they act like parents to you. You don't act like a son to them. By the way, just now you mentioned the 5 heaviest karmas. It's not killing the Buddha, because if a Buddha is not ready or not willing to enter Nibbana, nobody can kill him. What he says there is injuring a Buddha, shedding his blood. Okay, shall we end here?